What is up, everybody? RandomRandomMan here, bringing you a special kind of video that has now become a yearly tradition of mine, where I run down my predictions and preferences to the Oscars, aka the Academy Awards. This year in particular, it's the 90th Academy Awards. Like, wow. This year also marks the fifth year that I've made this video a tradition, where going all the way back to 2014, where I had revamped my mostly dormant YouTube channel, I started the year with a predictions and preferences video to that year's Academy Awards, and now every year since then I have run down what I think should win and will win at the ceremony. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of this video, I want to lay down a couple of disclaimers. Firstly, just like in years past, I will not be covering all 24 categories that are featured at the Oscars. The main reason being is that even though I try to see every movie that I can, my uncultured self has not seen every movie that has been nominated for an Oscar this year. So if you're expecting me to give my input to help you win an Oscar pool for categories such as Best Foreign Language Film or Best Live Action Short, you're out of luck there. I am still covering most of the categories that are featured at the Oscars this year, though, and it would be way too long if I covered all 24 anyway. The other disclaimer is that I am not the best at predicting these kinds of things. If you do recall last year, me and a bunch of other people boldly predicted that this movie here on my watch, La La Land, would win a bunch of Oscars, including the big one, Best Picture, when it ended up being boop, 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 boop. Dramatic effect. Moonlight, in that now infamous flub where it was the real Best Picture winner. Deservingly so. I even said that Moonlight would be the only movie that would have a chance at taking it away from La La Land. So yeah, I'm not the best at this kind of stuff, but I think it's fun for me to express my opinion on not just the nominees, but what I think should and will win, and even give some of you some insight as to my taste in film, and even probably help you despite me still not being the best of guessers. Also, as a quick final note before getting things rolling, in case you missed it, I reacted live to the Oscar nominations as they were being announced a month ago. I will leave a link to that video in the description, along with time skips for the categories that I am covering, and my reviews for all 9 of this year's Best Picture nominees. With all of that now out of the way, let's get into my actual predictions and preferences for this year's Oscars, and the first category I will be covering is Best Visual Effects. Now, I think all of these nominees are deserving of their nominations. What do I think should win? War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, this, I think, is overdue for this franchise in particular. The previous 2 films, Rise and Dawn, have both been nominated in the same category, but haven't won. And I think that the win for this film would be a subtle nod to Andy Serkis's work as Caesar as well, given the fact that the Academy hasn't fully embraced nominating motion capture performances. In fact, they haven't done so at all. And I also do think that War for the Planet of the Apes will win the Oscar for all that I have said. So, War for the Planet of the Apes should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Film Editing. I like all of the nominees here. What do I think should win? Hands down, Baby Driver, my favorite movie of 2017. I'm not just saying it should win for that. I'm also glad that it got 2 other nominations, Best Sound Editing and Best Sound Mixing, but I don't think it should win just because I adore the movie so much. It is deserving of this category in particular because it is a tricky movie that was strung together and put in execution, where music was literally tied to every scene, driving, pun intended, the narrative. What do I think will win? Looking at what won the Editing Guild Awards, aka the Eddies, Dunkirk won in the drama category, and I, Tonya won in the comedy category, which Baby Driver lost in. So it's having me think that one of those 2 will win, but I think the Academy will draw towards Dunkirk, which I think is a deserving movie to win this category. So, Baby Driver should win the Oscar, and Dunkirk will win the Oscar. Next, Best Costume Design. I don't think I've covered this category in the past, but I would like to comment on it this year in particular because I've seen all of the nominees minus Victoria and Abdul, and I think Phantom Thread should take this Oscar. It's about a dressmaker slash fashion designer, and in itself, the designs of the dresses that are put on screen and worn by the models are exquisitely put together. What do I think will win? The Shape of Water. It won a Costume Guild Award recently, and usually Guild Awards, as I have said, do predict Oscars the most, and that's also why I've held off doing this video, because I wanted to see what won specific Guild Awards to make informed predictions. So, Phantom Thread should win the Oscar, and The Shape of Water will win the Oscar. Next, Best Makeup and Hairstyling. I don't think I've covered this category in the past either, but seeing how there are only 3 nominees, I want to cover it really fast because hands down, I think Darkest Hour should and will win. Not only did the makeup help Gary Oldman in transforming him into Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour, but just the way it looks, it's a stunning technical achievement on its own. Right down to the neck fat on Gary Oldman's face and neck, it looking like it was so realistic. I haven't seen Victoria and Abdul once again, but I am really glad Wonder did get in there for at least a nomination in how Jacob Tremblay was able to transform into Augie in him having Treacher Collins syndrome all over his face. But Darkest Hour should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Cinematography. I've seen all the nominees here except for Mudbound, which I do plan on seeing before the Oscars ceremony next week. I will post a reaction on the Stardust app, which, by the way, you can follow me at Zitro_Nala on there. The rest of my socials are in the video description. But yeah, Mudbound, I also have to give a quick shout out to, even though I haven't seen it yet, because Rachel Morrison is the first ever female cinematographer nominee. That is insane. It took 90 years for this to happen. But going on with the rest of the nominees here, what do I think should win? Roger Deakins for Blade Runner 2049, hands down. Not just because he did a gorgeous job with how the movie looks, but this is his 14th nomination, I believe. It's his turn. It's time for him to win already. Always the bridesmaid, but never the bride, or in this case, always the groomsman, but never the groom. But just, wow. He's never won here, and I think it's about damn time he should. He won the Guild Award for cinematography, yet I'm not sure if he's going to win, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that he will win because it's time again. So, Blade Runner 2049 should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Production Design. Having seen all the nominees, they are all stunning movies in the way they construct how the sets looked. Yet, I think the movie that is the most deserving of this is The Shape of Water. Why? Mainly on the fact that it was the cheapest of all of these nominees. Just with as little of a budget as it had, just south of $20 million, I believe, it did so much in creating this world that Guillermo del Toro imagined, and it's so absorbing to say the least in adding on to the rest of the film. And I think it will win as well because I believe it won a Guild Award for Best Production Design, and that will add to its chances. So, The Shape of Water should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Original Song. Now, the songs here, the only ones I've heard are Mystery of Love by Call Me By Your Name, Remember Me from Coco, and This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. What do I think should win? Remember Me, Recuérdame from Coco. This song from the couple of Frozen fame, they won their Oscars for Let It Go from that film. They just did such a remarkable job with that song and being integral to the actual story. That's what I think is also a big reason it should win the Oscar, because it did add on to that film's narrative. What do I think will win? I'm a bit conflicted here. This Is Me from The Greatest Showman did win the Golden Globe in the same category, and it's a great song too. But I'm going to say Remember Me will win in this instance as well. So, Remember Me should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Original Score. I like all of the nominees here. Unique compositions in their own right. What do I think should win? Hands down, Dunkirk, composed by Hans Zimmer. I cannot imagine that movie being as intense or even working without the score that he has composed in making it so eerie, and just the vibes it created really had me suckered in and even be stressed out while watching the film. What do I think will win? Alexandre Desplat for The Shape of Water. He's been winning a bunch of awards in this category specifically, and it's deserving also. It's a beautiful score that he created for that movie as well. So, Dunkirk should win the Oscar, and The Shape of Water will win the Oscar. Next, Best Animated Feature. Do I have to say any more other than the fact that Coco should and will win the Oscar here? Next, Best Adapted Screenplay. I've seen all the nominees here except for Mudbound, and I've liked them all a lot. The Disaster Artist gives a humorous look at how Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau created The Room. Logan, I've got to give a shout out to that movie, not only for having a great script, but it being the first superhero movie to be nominated for a writing Oscar. Amazing feat on its own right there. Molly's Game, I think, should win. It's the script that I love the most out of all of the ones I've seen in the category. It's Aaron Sorkin's usual shtick. He's won an Oscar in this category before for The Social Network, deservingly so, and I think that it was the strongest part in Sorkin's directorial debut, along with the performances in the film as well. Molly's Game had great writing. Call Me By Your Name, though, I think will win. James Ivory has been winning a bunch in other awards that have been shown in the past, like the Critics' Choice Awards, and he'll also be the oldest winner of an Academy Award if he does win here, at about 89, I believe. And I heard he's overdue for an Oscar as well, him being nominated before, but never having won. So, Molly's Game should win the Oscar, and Call Me By Your Name will win the Oscar. Next, Best Original Screenplay. This is always one of my favorite categories to talk about, especially this year because I love all of the nominees in this category. The Big Sick, Get Out, Lady Bird, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, or Missouri as some people pronounce it. What do I think should win? Get Out. I remember back when I saw this thing in theaters last year that it should at the very least get nominated for Best Original Screenplay for what it does, not just as a horror, comedy, thriller movie hybrid, but the twist that does happen in the film. I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't seen the movie yet, which in that case, what are you doing? Get on that. It's a fantastic movie. And yeah, Jordan Peele for a first script as well, super impressive. And I also think it will win the Oscar. Jordan Peele, he recently won the WGA Award for Best Original Screenplay, and Call Me By Your Name, on a similar note, also won the WGA Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, so that gives it better chances to win as well. And Get Out, yeah, it winning the WGA Award will give it a big leg up, even though I could possibly see 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri take it from Jordan Peele and Get Out. So, Get Out should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Supporting Actress. We're getting into the acting categories here, and having seen all the performances here, except for Mary J. Blige and Mudbound, I've liked all of them to varying degrees. Allison Janney, though, hands down should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. She's been winning a shit ton of awards leading up to the Oscars, and I believe it is hers to lose for playing the abusive mother to Tonya Harding. And I think this is her first nomination as well, and it's also, I think, a career win for her for being such a talented working actress. So, Allison Janney should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Supporting Actor. I've seen all the nominees here, minus Willem Dafoe in The Florida Project. I've heard he's great, though. And I think Sam Rockwell should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Woody Harrelson is also nominated here in the same category. Both of these guys did terrific jobs, but in particular Sam Rockwell, in him playing a racist cop. And without spoiling anything, I was able to identify with his character throughout, and he was probably my favorite character and performance in the entire movie too, so that adds to why I think he should win as well. He's also been winning a bunch of these awards in other award shows and other award circuits, so that gives me a lot more confidence that I think he will win as well. So Sam Rockwell should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Actress. Going into this award season in particular, it was going to be a tight race to see who would even get nominated for Best Actress, let alone win. I've seen all the nominees here, and I've really liked or flat out adored these performances. Meryl Streep, I thought she was very good in The Post, though she is the least deserving of this nomination, though I, again, dug her performance a lot in The Post. Saoirse Ronan, I thought was excellent in Lady Bird. Margot Robbie in I, Tonya, her first Oscar nomination. She is definitely deserving of this nomination. Terrific in that film. Frances McDormand for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I think she's the one that will win. She's won a bunch of awards leading up to the Oscars. It is hers to lose. And yeah, the angry and sympathetic performance she gave as a grieving mother in that film is warranting of a win. And then finally, Sally Hawkins for The Shape of Water. Many of you may know that she gave my absolute favorite performance, male or female, of 2017, playing a mute woman who falls in love with an amphibious man. Just how difficult it would be to play this kind of character without saying a word, just emoting with facial expressions and body movements. It made me adore her so much more in this movie, and I think she should win. Yet again, this is Frances McDormand's to lose. Sally Hawkins should win the Oscar, and Frances McDormand will win the Oscar. Next, Best Actor. I've seen all the nominees here, minus Denzel Washington and Roman J. Israel Esquire, and I believe just like with the rest of the acting categories this year, it's pretty easy to predict who will win the actual Oscars if you've been following awards season, and Gary Oldman, hands down, should and will win the Oscar here. I like Timothée Chalamet in Call Me By Your Name, such a revelatory performance there. Daniel Day-Lewis in Phantom Thread, he is great as ever, and if this really is his last film performance, he went out on a high note. Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out, tremendous performance there, but I didn't think he would get nominated initially in awards season, but as it progressed, yeah, so deserving of that nomination as well. Revelatory performance there too. But Gary Oldman and him transforming into Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour, not just with the makeup, but his actual performance and the demeanor he presented. It's also gonna be so heartwarming for me to see my favorite actor, at least one of my favorite actors working in Hollywood today, get an overdue yet well-deserved win by the Academy. So, Gary Oldman should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Next, Best Director. Now, I think all of these nominees are deserving. Paul Thomas Anderson surprised me in him getting nominated for Phantom Thread, but he did a fantastic job with that movie. Greta Gerwig for Lady Bird and Jordan Peele for Get Out. 2 first-time solo director nominations here, and wow, bright futures ahead of them directing-wise for these 2 individuals for sure. Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk. Oh, my favorite director working in Hollywood today finally got his first Oscar nomination in this category, and he totally deserved it for Dunkirk. And my heart of hearts, I think he should win here, because I don't think if he doesn't win here, he's not going to win in the future, because Dunkirk, I believe, is his best chance to ever get him an Oscar. Yet Guillermo del Toro for The Shape of Water should and will win. Going from how he's waited a long time in his illustrious career to get this kind of recognition, and he is more than deserving for The Shape of Water for sure. He's been winning a bunch of these Best Director awards leading up to the Oscars, so I think it's safe to say that he will win. Guillermo del Toro should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. And finally, the big one, the big kahuna, Best Picture. As of last month, I've actually seen all 9 of these Best Picture nominees in theaters, no less. Big pat on the back for me being able to do so. And I've either really liked to flat out adored these nominees. Now, in the past, the movies that I've chosen as my preference to win the Best Picture Oscar have been those that I've loved the most. So in that mentality, I would choose Best Picture to go to the likes of Dunkirk or Lady Bird. I'm not going to do that this year. My choice for what should win Best Picture, out of the ones that realistically have the best chance to do so, is The Shape of Water. I've actually rewatched this movie ever since I first saw and reviewed this movie back in December. I saw it for a second time this past New Year's Day with my dad for his first viewing. He liked it a lot, and I loved it even more the second time around. Such a loving tribute to all things cinema while telling a beautiful story, a beautiful unconventional romance at its center. Guillermo del Toro, you did an amazing job with this film. What do I think will win? That's a bit of a conundrum, actually. Many people have said that the race this year has been between The Shape of Water and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I wouldn't be surprised if Three Billboards took it, but if the backlash to that movie has really been real, especially to the Academy, I would say it would go to The Shape of Water, but I think it's really open this year to what could win Best Picture. The votes could be split, and the likes of Dunkirk, Get Out, or Lady Bird could actually end up taking it, because that's how the Academy works in terms of how voting happens. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that The Shape of Water will win Best Picture because of it being so artsy, and it's really been a while since a film like this has been recognized, and usually Best Picture wins are political, and there is some political undertones to be mentioned with The Shape of Water. But with Three Billboards, if it does win, it will be immediately outdated since Black Panther has come out recently, and with Three Billboards tackling racism, Black Panther has already shown that there's a lot of empowerment with diversity in Hollywood anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if any of the movies that I've mentioned could possibly take the win, but I'm going to say that The Shape of Water should win the Oscar and will win the Oscar. Whew. And there you have it. My predictions and preferences to this year's Oscar nominees. So excited to see the ceremony live next week, hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. And even though for the umpteenth time, awards don't mean shit in retrospect, this is my Super Bowl. I'm just here to celebrate all things film, at least many of us are, and the Oscars are one part of it, and just to see Hollywood's biggest night play out, it's exciting for me and a bunch of people. With all of that being said, thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment your predictions and preferences to this year's Oscar nominees, social media links in the description, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.